4 minutes after 7 o'clock, you're listening to Kaya Biz here on Kaya 959. Now, for many of us in South Africa, we are well aware of the pressures that our local economy faces, right? We want businesses to thrive. We need entrepreneurs to create an environment that is able for them to cultivate new innovative solutions and, of course, ensure that not only do they receive success within their own institutions, but that from an economic point of view, that we're also able to make sure that the businesses can grow and thrive. And this is exactly what a piece of technology that I think many of us have interacted with, whether at a car wash, at the hair salon, out enjoying drinks at a particular eatery or at some place, or even just working with entrepreneurs at food markets and stores, or even your plumber. And these are all just the touch points that I have had the opportunity to interact with the phenomenal technology that we all know as YOCO, a payment platform technology company really that has been able to democratize access to fintech for many entrepreneurs and South Africans in order to include them within the economy. So tonight we are looking forward to having a very special conversation with my guest who will celebrate 10 years of YOCO and reflect on a few leadership lessons that he and his partners have been able to embark upon. 5 minutes after 7 o'clock, you're listening to Kaya Biz. And if you haven't guessed by now, my guest that I'm speaking to this evening is Gugulethu Mfuphi, who is co-founder and CEO of YOCO. Such a pleasure to have you with us, sir.
Thank you, Gugu. It's great to be here, and evening to all the listeners.
Fantastic. Really excited to reflect on your journey, because the truth is, for many South Africans, when we think not only of your product and how we've interacted with it, but just the journey that you've undertaken and the kind of disruptive nature that your business has implemented in South Africa, it's really phenomenal. It's incredibly inspiring. And most importantly, I can imagine that it's been a journey filled with many lessons for you. So firstly, congratulations to you and your co-founders.
Thank you,
secondly, just reflect very briefly on this 10-year journey that many of us presume has been an overnight success.
No, thank you. I think with a lot of humility, look back over the years with just, everything we've been through, how we started, where we are today. And I think what gives me the deepest pride is I'm still with my co-founders. There's 4 of us. It's quite unusual that after 10 years, we're still intact as a team, and
sure.
we're very much intact. We sit together, we talk all the time, and we're talking about the next 10 years. And nothing has changed since the onset. We looked at the country, the continent, and just noticed that small businesses were quite marginalized. And when we looked at the numbers, over 100 million small businesses across the region, they contribute on average around 50% to GDP. They drive the majority of employment. You really fully appreciate how critical this part of the economy is. But I guess what we noticed was, because it was small and fragmented, it was very difficult for the traditional institutions, the incumbents, to attend to these segments. They just the numbers just didn't stack up for them. And I guess, coming out of the telecom space, the technology space, and having been involved in venture building, the key insight that we had was a card machine is actually no different to a cell phone, and that the business models are actually identical. But in the one model, I can get my own phone, get my own SIM card, buy a scratch card on the side of the street or recharge without anyone, telling me that I can or can't. But in the other model, I had to call my bank, I had to make an appointment. If I was small, people just deprioritized me. I had to sign a 24-month contract. Before I even transacted, I was paying 500 Rand a month just to rent the machine, just all these hoops. And I guess what we realized was these models are the same, and we basically want to make getting a card machine as easy as getting a cell phone. That's 100%. Kind of the mindset that we had. And it's just been lovely seeing that manifest to where we are today. And we're still just getting started.
I like that you're saying that you just got started and seeing this journey grow and evolve and manifesting this vision that you are at today. But the truth is, and I guess one thing I've taken away from many of your conversations is how you share that it was a very patient journey.
Yes.
From starting the idea, developing the prototype, going into beta, then only getting funding a good 5 years after initially starting the business. That takes a lot of work and patience, and I think really tells us something about the kind of thinking that entrepreneurs approaching the fintech space need to develop, that there is no quick fix. It's not as easy as just running a small enterprise to keep it going. There really is a longer process to fully enhancing your craft, but also making sure that once it does enter the market, it's ready for investors, it's ready for its customers, as well as the base that you're going to serve. Talk to us about that process, because we often find that in South Africa there's a lack of patience with the entrepreneurs. Never mind the capital, we'll get there.
Well, I think it's a generational issue. Both here on the continent, even in the world. We live in a very deep instant gratification time. We want now, immediate. And as such, when you're thinking in short horizons, it influences the decisions that you take, and you end up taking shortcuts, and you feel like you're making progress and you're getting all these dopamine hits as you're doing it. But after time, you're realizing that you're not making any sort of meaningful progress. I'm really grateful with my partners from the onset that there was just an inherent long-term orientation. We believe that it's in the long term where true arbitrage exists.
Yes.
And the ability to create really meaningful value. And we've been fortunate that even in the early days where funding came from friends and family and individuals who were really just betting on us as people, that gave us the time in those early days to do the right things, which actually meant going slow. So we 2013 we spent a year just trying to get a license to operate. 2014 we were setting everything up, building. We only went into beta in 2015 and only officially launched the company then. But, at that point, we're actually fifth in the market. So there'd been 5 other players attempting to launch mobile point of sale, including the banks. But because we were doing the right things and had a deep sense of customer centricity, by the time you turned on the machine and we were ready to go, we had built the infrastructure to scale.
Got you.
And, we're kind of in an interesting point now where we're building for the future again and going through that process of like just slowing down to speed up. But, we know it works, and, it seems counterintuitive at the time, but we know it works, and it has us really excited about the next 10 years.
I'm super excited. And now that you've touched on that, in my mind, I can't even fathom what the next 10 years for YOCO looks like, because I can imagine that naturally it's dominating the continent and, of course, globally, especially in either developing and emerging markets. But I can also imagine that this is a unique piece of technology that is able to collate so much data that could actually enhance the performance of the entrepreneurs and SMMEs that you happen to support. That's what I would do if I were you. But I'm not sure because I haven't started YOCO. So maybe you can give us a bit of a teaser as to how you're looking to make YOCO not only more globally competitive, but still locally relevant to the markets that it will serve.
Well, the two things are actually connected. So we came to this recent realization, it was only this year actually, that when we set out to do this company, the goal was to democratize payments, right? And to remove barriers and to remove the mystery out of getting a card machine.
True.
And we realized this year that happened. It got done, So if you want a card machine now as a business owner, you can get it. And it's not even just through us, right? We've seen new folks appear, et cetera, et cetera. So
that's beautiful that you're embracing competition and there's enough space for everyone.
There's enough space, but the point is that, like, if I want a machine, I can get it, right? And so we define the past 10 years as the access age, and we see the next 10 years as the product age. And what do we mean by this? So, we've taken businesses out of pen and paper into an application, out of cash into taking digital acceptance, into, being able to get access to capital and to better manage themselves. But there's just so much more we can do inside the business whether it's, introducing new payment methods, helping businesses to better manage their money, helping them to attract customers, introducing automation. And all of this is a combination of, payments, some form of a digital account, software, credits, all of this coming together into a simple package that's intuitive and simple to use. If it's not, then we're not going to get to the scale, right? I think one thing that we managed to crack, which the institutions were struggling with, was, there was always a human involved with, the sale, the servicing, and the onboarding of a customer. Our ability to remove the human touch the human dimension out of that has meant that we could scale. And now we want to do that with all these other tools and products that we want to introduce into the platform.
100%.
And then that's also simultaneously going to make us more globally competitive, which is very important.
100%. Looking at your website now and looking at the various options that are available, and interestingly enough, I've had the opportunity to interact with a number of entrepreneurs who've spoken about how simple the process is, how easy it is to navigate, and of course, just how convenient it is for their pockets to ensure that they have a stream of revenue. But I'm also keen to, I guess, shift this kind of thinking for those who want to come back into the fintech play, Katlego. And I guess this is where things get very complex. In South Africa, particularly, there's this narrative that, again, black fintech founders and entrepreneurs don't get the necessary support that they require from a funding point of view, from a market point of view, and even support in terms of innovation and access to new minds and new ways of thinking. And I'm keen to understand what your thoughts are on that space, particularly as to how best we can widen the scope of those in the fintech space who might not have easy access to networks.
It's a great question. I think for starters, it just needs to be generally appreciated that, pulling a company together, raising capital, and making all of that happen is incredibly difficult. And I always ask people to put on this thought experiment, right? So what would it take for you to give money to somebody? Right?
Ooh. Yeah.
Right? And that kind of puts things into perspective. So that's kind of one layer. And then the other layer is kind of looking at the structural context in South Africa. And I was speaking about this in a podcast I did with Bruce Whitfield, where I really spoke about the concentration of capital in the country, the exchange controls, which control how much capital can come in and out of the country, and even just skills, all these things, and as a result, the concentration of the capital makes it even more difficult, right? To for money to flow into the right types of ideas. So, what do you do inside of this context? You just have to innovate even on these things that are not even necessarily connected to your customers. And it's annoying and it's difficult, but you have to do it. There's no choice, right? It's not going to magically happen by itself, but it's actually part of the entrepreneurial journey. And if I were to kind of really summarize, what we were able to do to kind of break through these very difficult structural barriers in the country was we just put on a global hat. We saw ourselves as global citizens, and we just didn't, restrict our thinking and, picking up the phone and our engagements to just people in the country. And it's been remarkable, engaging with, both founders and investors in Europe, Asia, and the US. And actually just seeing the entrepreneurial kinship and the desire to help and to support. And I think what often happens is people just don't ask or check or see. Sure. They just assume that this is the world, and they put themselves in a box. And my point is that because of the wealth concentration in South Africa, you don't have a choice. You have to look outside. Otherwise, you're kind of up against a system that's yeah.
I get you.
There's a conflict of interest, essentially.
I get you. I get you. And it makes so much more sense why entrepreneurs like yourself are actually looking to open up those opportunities to others who are coming up to say, hold on, to avoid the mistakes that we made, follow this particular path. Here are some of the lessons. Here are some of the learnings. And one of the learnings I'm hoping you can also share, Katlego, is, I guess, a personal one. In previous conversations and many interviews you've done, you've made it very clear that entrepreneurship comes with a heightened level of personal sacrifice. And that's typically what people tend to forget when you are in the building stages. And you've even reminded us that you're still building the next 10 years of YOCO. And I'm hoping that you can give us some insight into that. How yourself and your team members and your colleagues stay level-headed, how you still find a sense of motivation to keep going, how you keep yourself in check to actually become more than just Gugulethu Mfuphi, the YOCO founder. You're a brother, you're a friend, you're a husband, you're so many things to other people. So how do you ensure that that balance is not confused?
Yeah, I guess it's very easy for one's ego to start attaching and identifying with what you're doing, who you are, your position. You can really get caught up in this stuff. And that's generally where I feel things can start going a bit wrong, and it may not be immediate in the medium term, but like over time you get lost. And the purpose for us in this company, why we started it, it's just a vehicle to enable people to thrive. It's just a mechanism, but sort of the purpose has remained very pure inside of that, and like just having like that North Star, that guidance, you kind of wake up every day, you go into the office and you know why you're there, and that's very, very important. And then I think alongside that, I received some really important advice from my father once. It was in the early days when we're trying to get a license, and we're trying to fundraise, and you're just really dealing with these ups and downs constantly. And it was very difficult just trying to keep yourself calibrated. And he told me the story of, you got to imagine that this journey is like you're a jumbo jet, and you start at the gate, and you get a bit of help from that car to pull you back.
Got you.
The engines start, and you get on the tarmac, and you go and you move, and then eventually you get to the runway. You prepare, and then the engines really go, and you take off, and you get up into the air, and you kind of cruise a little bit. You hit some turbulence, and I'm like, okay, this all makes a bunch of sense. And he said, the most important thing is that you stay the same person through each one of those phases. Ooh. And that was incredibly powerful advice, because it made me realize that, dropping from a high is a long fall, right? So, just keeping yourself on an even keel, especially when things are going well, is very important, because you stay alert and ready to deal with when things go wrong, which they will. And kind of you're constantly focused on staying on an even keel. But I think the most important insight is that you lose perspective when you get caught up in the highs.
True.
And that's how you need to manage yourself.
Sure. Those are really powerful words. And I think when you really reflect on them and the experience and the analogy that was shared, it really does put things into perspective on that note.
Yeah, it saved me.
Right? I can imagine. And it's probably still what's saving you now, despite the 10-year celebration of YOCO and its existence. But I'm aware that you guys have had phenomenal success, multiple rounds of institutional capital that has been raised. If I'm not mistaken, you're still looking to go to market with new ideas and, of course, raise more capital. And that in itself also comes with a lot of pressure. But despite that, for some of the entrepreneurs who might be listening, and I can imagine you probably get approached all the time, Grootman, mentor us and inspire us. And as we wrap up Youth Month as well, Katlego, we don't take for granted that yourself and your colleagues actually met at a very young age at university and have still kept that momentum and relationship going. If you do have any words of encouragement for young entrepreneurs who might not be well calibrated, who might still be confused by their vision and their purpose, or even swayed by the exogenous factors outside of their control. Any words of encouragement for entrepreneurs in our local economy?
Yeah, I think there's two core things for me. One is solve a problem that matters. And what I mean by that is, if you're doing a bit of a Me Too or and this, and you're providing kind of a third or fourth alternative for the same customer segments, because it just seems easier, or you just kind of interested in something because it's a bit personal to you, but kind of when you quantify the problem, it's actually quite tiny.
Sure.
This is really why I see people falling short, is like just, being super clear on the problem definition and the scope of the problem, and knowing that in solving it, like, you're going to make some sort of a dent. You have to start there. And I get really surprised at how, many folks just, focus on the solution, and identify with it and get entangled with it, and the problem is like a secondary thing, and that's often where disruption happens, by the way. So just have a real problem, and there's many problems in this country, and there's a lot of segments and people who need attending to, and they're not being attended to. So like, let's just solve these problems. So that's one. And then two, one of my core drives behind becoming an entrepreneur, I kind of work backwards to it. It's not something I envisioned in my life. But at some point I realized that, at work you spend a lot of time with people, and it's a big part of your life. And I just had this realization that, like, wow, actually, when I have a lot more agency around who I spend my time with.
True.
And I kind of work backwards to go, well, oh goodness, I have to start a company to have that agency. But
Got you.
But the underlying principle is, work on something that matters, and do it with people you love and respect. That combination, I really see it as the core. Everything else is kind of a derivative of that, and a bonus and an extra. But if you have those two things in check, then I think you'll be okay.
Sure. What a profound moment to leave it off on, Gugulethu. This conversation can go on for months and months. We're really intrigued to get into your mind, but I'm assuming you're not breaking any news here tonight about YOCO. We'll wait to see what further updates you have to share, right?
No major news tonight. We have a product launch tomorrow that we're excited about, that we're doing in Johannesburg. So folks can look out for that.
Awesome.
But no, not tonight.
Not tonight. Okay. Well, we'll look out for it and definitely continue sharing the message. And again, on behalf of many entrepreneurs who you've given access to technology and a digital way within which to manage their revenues, thank you. Thanks
for having me, and thanks to everyone.
Fantastic. That was my guest, Gugulethu Mfuphi, who joins us as a co-founder and CEO of YOCO. Many of you would know it very well as an African technology company, building the necessary tools and services to help small businesses get paid and be part of the digital economy. As you've heard, a new product launch taking place tomorrow, the 29th of June, 2023. So we're looking forward to seeing what that has on offer. And of course, hearing your feedback. Maybe you're an entrepreneur whose life has been changed by YOCO. I know, for one, as a consumer, I've interacted with the product and the service quite often, and seen how it's really evolved in the manner with which I transact with small business owners. So share your thoughts and, of course, your feedback at Kaya On Air. Use the hashtag KayaBiz. Tweet me at Gugulethu Mfuphi. And your voice notes are welcome on 063 688 0959. It's 28 minutes after 7 o'clock.